Texas Republican Congressman and presidential candidate Ron Paul was the keynote speaker Friday night at the Florida Liberty Summit in Orlando. He talked about the current tax system and the Federal Reserve monetary policy. The summit is hosted by the group Campaign for Liberty. Congressman Paul finished in second place in last week's Iowa Republican Party straw poll, 1 percentage point behind the winner, Representative Michelle Bachmann. This is just over 45 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and thank you for that very nice reception. I want to thank Jack for the introduction. Also, I want to thank Mark for all his hard work. It seems like I get to Florida quite often for Campaign for Liberty, but Mark has something to do with it. He has good organization skills, and he has a lot of people to work with. Thank you very much for helping out. This year, I particularly wanted to make sure I made this meeting because, we had that little straw vote last week, and I wanted to make sure you knew about the results. You might not have heard about it, so I wanted to come and let you know how things came out. But someday, when this momentum continues, which it is, the crowds are getting bigger, the enthusiasm is getting louder, the country is coming our way, pretty soon we're going to get some of those big interviews on Sunday morning. Who knows? But it is great to be here. I'd like to talk about what I talk about all the time, and that's liberty. So, but I want to address it in a certain way. Generally speaking, I am sure you have been challenged, as I have been for many years, and continue to be, and that is the accusation that we who have these particular beliefs that we believe, sincerely in the Constitution, they're strange ideas, they're out of the mainstream, there's something odd about them. But I'd like to talk about what's been going on in this country, because I think the oddballs have been in control of this country way too long. Now, the one issue I've talked about for a long time and motivated me even in the early years of me being involved in politics, having to do with Bretton Woods and the monetary system. But just think about it, how often now they say that this idea of commodity money and gold and the Constitution, how silly it was. The other day I read something I found rather entertaining. I was by myself and I had to laugh a little bit because the person that was writing this said that, yes, Ron Paul has interesting ideas about monetary policy, but it's pre-industrial. And I got to thinking, does he realize where this country is moving? What has happened in the last 40 years? We've been de-industrialized by this runaway paper standard. It is only honest money that really promotes the industrialized world, and money is very important in doing that. So monetary policy is key. It's key for those who believe in the entitlement system because you have to finance it. It's key for those individuals that will finance wars overseas. And therefore, it is a very, very important issue. And when you think about what has happened over the last 100 years, essentially, since we've had our Federal Reserve, we've lost, I have to keep up, I have to check every morning exactly how much we've lost against gold. It's about 98.5%, 99% of the value of the $1913 we have lost. And then they want to say this is a good system, purposely devaluing the currency. I would say after 100 years, it's time we reevaluated it, and we should come to the conclusion, and that is we don't need a central bank and we need to get rid of the Federal Reserve System is what we need. But when they tell you that it's a silly idea to think about gold, how could anything be sillier than taking pieces of paper and writing numbers on them and have value? You know, I think grade school kids can be taught something about money that they don't understand in Washington. It's because they want it that way. They know that it serves a special interest. They know that it serves the interests of big government. It serves the interests of big corporations, the military-industrial complex, the financiers, the bankers. They know they can make a lot of money getting hold of that money first, but they also know when they control the money and they can control the ability to inflate at will, they also can bail themselves out when necessary. And that has to come to an end. We need to do a lot more concern about our middle class. But it's pretty bad when the Congress goes and inflates and has these stimulus programs, $1 billion here, $1 billion there. Soon it's up to $1 trillion. It's a lot of money. But it's minor compared to what the Fed does. And the Fed actually believes they should be able to and be allowed to do it in secret. You know, if we don't get rid of the Fed soon, we better at least get to audit the Fed and find out exactly what they've been doing. But just think they've been pumping around $15 trillion these last 4 years. A third of it went to the foreign banks, foreign central banks and foreign governments. I mean, this is such an outrage. When the people hear this, they become outraged, and more people are hearing it. The truth is I am very surprised, pleasantly so, that we are this far along on delivering this message. 4 or 5 years ago, before the last campaign, I didn't know, nobody knew how many people like you were out there that had already thought about it and knew about it. And here there were thousands and thousands. I believe today there are millions and millions of people who are now aware of what's going on. So here we take a monetary system. They argue the case that printing money is real and we should do it in secret and bail out all the special interests. At the same time, they mock the notion that we should follow the Constitution. The Constitution said only gold and silver can be legal tender. You cannot emit bills of credit, which is paper money. And what do? How do they have to protect their system? By force. They use the force of government. And to say with the laws, the legal tender laws, say you must settle all your contracts and use the only money, which is paper money. And if you are so eager, I mean, and so bold, and think that you have the right, because of the Constitution, that you have the right to use gold and silver coins, even those that were minted by our government, and that still says legal tender, and the Constitution say they're legal tender, which some have done. They can be arrested and put in prison for this, charged with counterfeiting. To use American hard money is counterfeiting. The counterfeitings are over at the Federal Reserve. So it's an absolute economic fact that by duplicating units of money with nothing behind the currency, but just to duplicate paper money, there is no additional wealth put into the economy. None. All it does is dilute wealth, redistributes wealth. It is very well known in the study of monetary history that when governments do this, and they've been doing it for centuries, this is not brand new, and when they do it, it inevitably wipes out the middle class. I mean, just think in recent history, Mexico's gone through, remonetization and runaway inflation. Germany did it. Zimbabwe's done it. South American countries have done it. And it's been done so many times. And yet, inevitably, the only way to restore confidence is always to go back with real money. And of course, when you do, and when we will do that, the people have to believe the individual's doing it. Because if they announce tomorrow, they say, okay, looks bad, so we're going on the gold standard. Let's say we'll make the gold 1/1500th of an ounce of gold, and we will honor that. But we won't change our foreign policy. We won't change our spending habits. We won't change our deficits. Who would believe it? Nobody would believe that. We had one example in our history where we did that, and the people had a little bit more conviction about the country and what the government said, and that was after the Civil War. They had a Resumption Act, took 3 years. They quit printing greenbacks, and they withdrew some. And then we didn't have a welfare state. We didn't have an empire. After 3 years, the price of gold went down dramatically from a couple $100 down to $20, and it was a non-event. But today it is so different. So to deal with the monetary issue, you have to deal with something else that is very important. That is the role of government. And then the more important thing is to have people in government, from the presidency on down, individuals that you can trust and understand and won't lie to you. Now, as bad as it is in Washington from top down, and as bad as it is that we are suffering from the consequences of decades of teaching by socialists and Keynesians and inflationists, it's really as much the people at fault as anybody, because we're not in a challenge now. We who are in an audience like this, we're sick and tired of it all. We know what has to be done, but we're still probably numerically in minority, because more than half the people in the country have become dependent on the government. And therefore, any attempt to do it will make people very angry. And we've seen this already. We've seen this happen in the states that have tried to correct things. People get quite angry. They're angry around the world. They're very upset about what's happening. And they don't quite understand it because prices of food are going up. But they don't know that the world economic system and the monetary system has been manipulated by us printing so much money. So they're reacting to prices going up, and therefore they act out. And they're capable of doing it in this country, and they've already showed some anger around the country as well. But the people have an appetite for big government. That's what's happened. We have a large number of people. I mean, I meet them on the stages when I have debates. They don't think we have enough wars going on. They think we need more wars going on. But thank goodness we are breaking through on that. The people are with us on that. And when you get a former Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, coming home and finally getting out of that business saying, anybody who thinks we need another war needs their head examined. And I agree. But if we allow those who find special reasons for wanting to keep our presence around the world, so many bases in so many countries, with no real effort to bring these troops home, there was an announcement today that we're working now on an agreement with the Afghan government to be able to stay, because they're inviting us to stay till 2024. Sure. And the odds of us leaving Iraq, what do you think the odds are of leaving Iraq? I think they're slim to none until we're broke, unless we get somebody in office that will change the foreign policy and bring the troops home. You know, sometimes little items stand out bigger than the trillions of dollars. It's hard to comprehend the trillions and the hundreds of billions. So there's one thing that went on in Iraq that I think you can remember, and it makes them look silly. Why are they doing this? And that is, they decided after we conquered Iraq, you know, they had all those nukes and everything over there, and we had to conquer them.